Okay, boys and girls, chapter 11, The Jinx. From the drain pipe, the animals watched Paul put out the fire. He dragged what papers he could out of the newsstand and got a bucket of water to douse the rest. And he watered down the walls to make sure that they wouldn't flare up later. When the danger was over, he called up Papa Bellany on the telephone. "What a mess," said Tucker Mouse, looking at the soggy, smoldering piles of papers and magazines. No one knew what to say. "What if you go? What are you going to do, Chester?" said Harry Cat. I'm going back there," said Chester. "If the Bellanys find me gone, they'll think that I set the fire and ran." "What makes you think they won't think that you set the fire and stayed?" said Tucker. "Well, I'll have to take that chance," said Chester. And before the cat or the mouse could say anything to stop him, he hopped over to the newsstand. Paul had told the engineer that he would miss a few trips on the shuttle and was waiting for the Bellanys. He didn't want anyone monkeying around with the cash register while the cover was off. The conductor thought that the cups and the bags from the animals' party had been left by Mario or Papa. While he was taking them over to the trash barrel, Chester jumped up on the shelf. Nothing there had been burned, but there was a smoky smell to everything. The cricket took a downhearted leap into the cage and settled himself for whatever might come. It didn't take the Bellanys long to arrive. They had taken a taxi, and when the Bellanys took a taxi, you could be sure that it was an emergency. Chester could hear them hurrying down the steps from the street. Papa was trying to soothe Mama, who was wheezing heavily from the asthma and excitement. When she saw the heaps of the scorched magazines and newspapers, she began to moan and to shake her head. Papa eased her down onto the stool, but it was still covered with water, and she stood up again with a wet spot on her skirt. "A ruin! We are ruined!" Papa confronted her as best that he could by saying that it was only a few stacks of the Ladies' Home Journal that had been lost, but Mama wouldn't believe that. Anything less than complete destruction had come to them all. Mario, who brought up the rear of this sad parade, thought first for the safety of his cricket. He saw that Chester was in his cage, though, and decided that it would be best to keep quiet until Mama's outburst of grief had subsided. Paul told them what had happened and how he'd smelled the smoke and heard the alarm clock ringing. And then he came to the part about the animals who had escaped from the burning newsstand. "So," said Mama Bellany, all her despair changing into anger, "and was in the newsstand again, didn't I tell you?" And she lifted her forefinger to Mario. "Didn't I say that cricketer would ask in his pals? He probably set the fire. He's a firebug." Mario didn't have a chance to speak. He would open his mouth to defend Chester, but before he could say anything, the words were drowned in Mama's flood of reproaches. She had found someone on whom she could blame her unhappiness, and there was nothing stopping her. When a pause came, Mario said meekly, "My cricket would never do anything like burn up our newsstand." "The fact remains that we had a fire." "But crickets are good luck." Good luck. He eats a money, he commits a us, and he's a jinx. That's what he is. He's a good luck for going backwards. He's got to go." She folded her arms across her chest. It was an attitude that Mario knew meant the absolute end to everything. "Oh, I could keep him somewhere else." No. He's a jinx and he has to go." Papa put his finger to his lips as a signal to Mario that he shouldn't say anything more, and the two of them began to clean up. They carted away all the hopeless, burned magazines and tried to salvage some that had only been scorched. Mario mopped the floor of the newsstand while Mama spread out papers to dry. By the time they were finished, it was almost an hour before the first wave of commuters. Chester was lying on the floor of the cricket cage. He felt guilty, because even if he hadn't said it in the way, the fire was his fault. If he hadn't invited everyone into the newsstand, it wouldn't have happened. And it was his playing of the rumba that made Tucker want to dance, and so tip over the matches. And all he did eat the $2 bill. He began to believe that he really was a jinx. During the early morning rush hour, Mario was especially eager in his shouts of, "Paper, mister! Time or life, mister!" Papa was more active than usual, too, but Mama sat gloomily on the stool with a gray, determined look on her face. Despite the fact that the selling that morning went very well, she wouldn't change her mind, and after rush hour was over, Papa went out to buy a new lock. Chester heard a soft scratching from behind the Kleenex box. A familiar face peeked out. "Oh, what's going on?" asked Tucker. "Are you crazy? All they need is to catch you here." "Well, I had to find out how you were doing." "They're going to throw me out." Oh, and it was me that did it. Supposing I give you the rest of my life savings, maybe we could buy them off." Chester leaned his black little head up against the bars of the cricket cage. "Not this time. Mama's got her mind made up, and I don't blame her. I wish I'd never come to New York." "Oh, Chester, don't say that. You'll make me feel like a rat. And I'm only a mouse." "Well, it's not your fault, but I've been having nothing but bad luck since I came." Without knowing what he was doing, the cricket began to chirp to ease his feelings. He found that it helped somehow if you sang your sadness. He wasn't paying much attention, and just by accident he played the first few notes of the Italian folk song that he had learned the night before. It was so melancholy and yet so sweet, and it fitted his mood exactly. Mamma Bellany was untying a bundle of the Herald's Tribune when she heard the chirping. At first she didn't know what it was, which she said in Italian, and it's, "Oh, what does it mean?" Chester stopped playing. "Cha controva," said Mama. "Who was singing?" Mario looked at his mother. Usually when she spoke in Italian, it meant that she was in a good mood. But that couldn't be true today. Now Tucker Mouse was a very good judge of character, both animal and human. He thought that he had heard a kind of softness in Mamma Bellany's voice. "Play something more." "Oh, she hates me, and it will only make her more angry." "Well, do as I tell you." So Chester started to chirp again. He was in such disgrace anyway. What difference could it make? The piece that he was playing was called "Come Back to Sorrento," and by the greatest of luck, it happened to be Mamma Bellany's favorite song. Back in Naples, Italy, when Papa was courting her before they came to America, he used to come beneath her window on a moonlit night and sing this ballad to the plunking of an old guitar. As the cricket chirped, the whole scene came back to Mama. The still, warm night, the moon shining down on the velvety bay of Naples, Papa singing to her. Tears welled up into her eyes as she thought of the bygone times, and very softly she began to murmur the words to the song. Chester Cricket had never played with so much skill before. When he heard Mama singing, he slowed his tempo so that she could keep up without straining. When she was loud, he was too, and then softer when she got choked up with emotions and her voice dwindled. But always his chirping carried her along, keeping her on the right beat and the right tune. He was the perfect accompanist. Mario was dumbfounded. He stared, astonished, at the cricket cage and then at his mother. So here's Mama Bellany. It was just as marvelous for his mother to be singing as it was for the cricket to chirp familiar songs. Sometimes, when she was very happy, Mama Bellany whistled her. Once or twice Mario had heard her hum. But now, here she was crying and warbling like an Italian nightingale. Chester finished, "Come back to Sorrento." "Oh, keep it up, keep it up. She's a sucker for a sad song." Before Mama's mood had a chance to wear off, Chester began chirping the selection from the opera that he had played during the party. Mama didn't know the words to the opera, but she hummed some of the tunes along with him, and Mario was still as a stone. Papa Bellany came back from the locksmith. Coming down the stairs, he was surprised not to hear his wife and Mario calling out the newspapers. But when he got nearer to the newsstand, he was even more surprised to hear the strains of the Grand March from Adia coming from the cricket cage. "He chirps opera!" exclaimed Papa. His eyes looked as big and as startled as two hard-boiled eggs. "Shh!" said Mama. Chester's memory for music was perfect. He had to hear a piece only once to remember it forever. When he had finished all of the operatic numbers, he stopped. "Should I go on with the pop tunes?" he whispered to Tucker Mouse, who was still hidden behind the Kleenex box. "Wait a while and see what happens." Mama Bellany had a dreamy look in her eyes. She put her arm around her son and said, "Mario, no cricketer who sings a Torina a Sorrento so beautifully could possibly have set a fire. He can stay a little while longer." Mario threw his arms around his mother's necks. You hear? You can stay. Oh boy, and this is only the beginning. I'll be your manager, okay? Well, okay. And so began the most remarkable week in Chester Cricket's or any cricket's life.